Bertrand Russell was a profound impact on many areas of study, and we can still see the effects of his remarkable mind in today's society. Russell was considered a pioneer in the field of philosophy, won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1950, and was a well known political and anti war activist throughout the course of his life. Over his incredibly long career, Russell ventured into several other fields of study, including ethics, educational theory, history of ideas, and multiple religious studies. Bertrand Arthur William Russell was born into a wealthy family at Terrick, near England, on May 18, 1872. At the age of 3, his mother and father tragically passed away. So, as to avoid being raised agnostic by his grandfather, Bertrand ended up being raised by his grandmother. He never attended public school, instead being taught by governesses and tutors. This led him to be fluent in both French and German. He was named Earl after the death of his brother, and he lived and lectured in several different countries and continents. Russell was a self described socialist, communist, and liberal. His views were unique, to say the least, and Russell found himself in hot water over them often. He was fired from multiple jobs and went before ethics committees to defend his ideas more than once. Still, Russell was awarded the Order of Merit and chaired multiple society boards. Russell was also married and imprisoned several times throughout his life. He was nothing if not persistent and resolute in his beliefs. Bertrand Russell caught my attention with his beliefs on warfare. Specifically, Russell became involved with anti-war activities during the outbreak of World War I in 1914. Before the war was even officially declared, Russell had already made up his mind clearly that it was his place to oppose the very thought of the war and what could come of it. Russell strongly believed that his country of England had no reason to be part of the destruction of Germany. England should even go so far as to host German officials and troops with hospitality if they ever did invade, and keep themselves out of the trouble at all costs. In 1916, Russell found himself being fined £1,000 for an anti-war pamphlet that he authored. 2 years later, he was convicted and sentenced to 5 months imprisonment for suggesting the American soldiers were being used to intimidate strikers in Britain. Officials were worried that just the situation would put a strain on the historically tumultuous relationship between British royalty and American government officials. There is a collaboration between Russell and the great Albert Einstein called the Russell-Einstein Manifesto. The Russell-Einstein Manifesto speaks about their beliefs on nuclear weaponry. Their thoughts were that the nuclear war will end all humanity in the years to follow, if it were allowed to persist. Russell and Einstein agree that people should make decisions as citizens on a global scale, not solely in the best interests of one country over another. They believe the steps should be taken to prevent the need for military contest, and in the case of World War I in particular, that victorious countries should go easy on the losing countries and not threaten them unfairly. Russell believed that men of authority did not grasp the full nature of nuclear war and the effects it would have on the world as a whole. With the advanced capabilities and power of nuclear weapons, the sheer explosions would be 2,500 times more powerful than the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. Soldiers were sent to war not knowing who they were killing or what they were killing for, but simply following decisions of higher authority. Russell was a man far ahead of his time for many reasons. I think his ideas about nuclear war and his fears about the impact it would have on society and the human race still ring true today. The threat of a nuclear war looms over our country all the time with North Korea, whether the fears are founded or not. Russell is an inspiration for the new school thought, and I end with a quote by him. The passion simple but overwhelming strong that govern my life, the long for love, the search for knowledge, and unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind. These passions, like great winds, have blown me hither and thither, in a wayward course over a great ocean of anguish, reaching the very, very verge of despair. I have sought love first because of brings ecstasy. Ecstasy great that I would often have sacrificed all the rest of life for a few hours of joy. I have sought it. Next, because it relieves loneliness, the terrible loneliness in which the one shivering conscience looks over the rim of a world into the cold, unfathomable, lifeless abyss. I have sought it finally because of the union of love I have seen. In the mystic miniature, the prefiguring vision of the heaven that saints, poets have imagined. This is what I sought, and thought it might seem too good for a human life. This is what at last I have found. With equal passion I have sought knowledge. I have wished to understand the hearts of men. I have wished to know why they stars shine. And I have tried to apprehend the peregrine, powered by which number holds sway above the flux. A little of this, but not much, I have achieved. Love of knowledge, so far as they were possible, led upward towards the heavens, but always pity brought me back to earth. Echoes of cries of pain reverent in my heart. Children in famine, victims tortured by oppressors, helpless old people a hated burden to their sons, and the whole world of loneliness, poverty, and pain make a mockery of what human life should be. I long to alleviate this evil, but I cannot, and I too suffer. This has been my life. I have found it worth living, and would gladly live it again if the chance were offered to me.